How did we get the New Testament? One of the classes I teach each year is called Textual Criticism of the New Testament. Now, that can be a topic that sounds arcane or perhaps sounds irrelevant, but textual criticism is incredibly important for understanding the Bible. I'm speaking specifically here of New Testament textual criticism. So what is textual criticism and why do we need it? Well, to put the matter starkly, if we want to read any ancient document, someone is going to have to do textual criticism in order to identify that document and present it to us. If you're reading Homer, or if you're reading Tacitus, or if you're reading Josephus, that's pre-printing press. Someone's got to find where those books exist so that they can print the book. And the New Testament is similar but a little different as well. The New Testament is written originally prior to the printing press, and so that means all the copies were made by hand. Now, if they were made by hand, not every single copy agrees with every other copy. This means that whenever we have manuscripts of the New Testament that do not agree precisely, we need to use methods of textual criticism to adjudicate where copyist errors likely entered in. Now, textual criticism does not mean you're critiquing the Bible. It means you're assessing the copying of manuscripts and trying to determine with a high degree of probability where the original text of the New Testament is to be found. So again, we're not critiquing the Bible, we're trying to identify where the text is to be found. A lot of times the Greek words sound similar, or the spelling might be a little different, or it might be a synonym. And so you have differences that could enter in, and the more manuscripts we have, the more likely it is that you're going to be able to identify the original text. And the good news for textual criticism of the New Testament is we have somewhere over 5,600 manuscripts of the New Testament, not counting church fathers quotations and things like that as well. Now, how do you do it? Well, if you are learning Greek and you're learning how to assess textual variants, you may have an edition of the Greek New Testament that looks something like this. This is the Nestle Aland Greek New Testament. And not only do you have the Greek text, but at the bottom of the page, you've got what we call the apparatus. What is that? The apparatus it gives you variant readings of passages. And so the editors of this New Testament, they are not trying to trick you. They're not trying to put something in the text that doesn't belong in the text. They're doing their best to identify what is most likely to be what I would call the original text. Some people might call it something different. And then they're showing their work at the bottom of the page so that you can check their work. And if you understand how to read these symbols at the bottom of the page, you're going to understand the way they made their decisions and how you can assess those decisions. And so, for example, if you're reading through a New Testament translation, and for example, 1 Corinthians 13:3, some translations say burn, some translations say boast. That's not really a translational difference in as much as it is a textual difference. And in that case, I think the right word is boast, because you have three different options for burn, three or so options in the apparatus, which all seem to be derivations of the original word for boast in 1 Corinthians 13:3. That's just one example. But every verse of the New Testament comes from someone using the method of textual criticism to print what is most likely to be the original verse. And so what we have is a number of different Greek New Testaments and other resources that allow you to dig deep. If you understand Greek, if you can learn Greek, you can learn how textual criticism works. There's different methods of textual criticism, and the traditional view is something called reasoned eclecticism. An eclectic method means you look at both the internal evidence and the external evidence. What does that mean? That means you're looking at the external evidence of the manuscripts, and you're looking at the internal evidence of the documents themselves. That includes not only an author's style, but also the types of mistakes copyists might make in the transcribing of documents. Now, if you were to sit down and copy out the New Testament by hand, odds are extremely high you would make an accidental mistake along the way. You might flip words around, you might finish a sentence because you know a similar passage that looks like that. You might misread something in front of you. And these are the sorts of things that occur in the copying of manuscripts. And so what methods of textual criticism do is understands the types of mistakes people normally make and then can weed those out. And it's not just a guessing game, because we have so many witnesses that agree. When something doesn't agree, often you can see where the difference enters into the manuscript tradition. And so we have a large number of ancient New Testament manuscripts, more than most other ancient writings. In fact, more than all other ancient writings from that era. And so what we know from the manuscripts is that no one could sneak something into a text. And where there are questions, and there are questions about a few passages, not really that many, but where there are questions, we know what the options are. It's either this, this, or this, for example. Some examples are the end of Mark, or do verses 9 to 20 belong in Mark 16? Well, a lot of people say yes, a lot of people say no, but either way, we know what the options are and what the evidence is in favor of this reading or that reading. And so textual criticism can be complicated. There are various methods out there. There's always new editions coming out. This is the 28th edition to the Nestle Aland text. The 29th edition is coming out soon. But if you understand the background for how we got the New Testament, when you look at a footnote in your translation, your English Bible, and for example, Mark 1:41, some translations say Jesus was indignant, some say he was compassionate. That's a difference in a word in Greek. And so if you look at the footnotes in some translations, they will tell you what the options are. If you learn Greek, you can go even deeper with that and look for yourself at what the options are and consider in even more detail how these differences may have arisen. Now, you don't have to read Greek to understand the message of the New Testament. And you don't even have to read Greek to understand what the options are. But for those who do learn Greek and want to go deeper with that, you can dig very deeply into this question of how we got the New Testament, how we got the Bible more broadly as well. But you're going to have to do that by looking at the manuscripts, understanding the types of mistakes people would make in the copying of manuscripts. Now, there's a whole lot more to say about textual criticism, but that gives you some idea, if you're interested in what it means. What is textual criticism? How did we get the New Testament? Well, we get the New Testament from the manuscripts of the New Testament. Often earlier is better, not always, but typically the earlier manuscripts are better. But a lot of those early manuscripts also have errors in them, and a lot of those early manuscripts are incomplete. So think of early papyri, for example. But those are evened out by later manuscripts that are fuller and bear strong resemblances to earlier texts. And there's a lot to say here. People spend their whole careers working on textual criticism. But I wanted just to give a brief overview of what textual criticism is in case you've heard the term or you want to learn more about it. I'll leave some links in the video descriptions for other places you can look. Thanks for watching. I hope this is helpful. Remember to keep it clear and focus on Christ.